and welcome back to AI and 5. I'm your host, Simon Chris. Joining me today from France is Olivier Gomez. He's the founder of IAC, and we're going to be talking about the impact that generative AI is having on older technologies. Hi, Olivier. Welcome to AI and 5. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me. Very excited here to be and talking to someone on the other side of the world.
Yeah, France to Australia. Let's jump right into it. I was talking recently with a bank here in Australia, and their question to me was, we've made all this investment in conversational AI. Do we need to throw that out now because of generative AI? So it kind of comes to this, does generative AI mean the death of prior technologies, RPA and all those other things? What's your take on that?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And, people have a tendency to jump to the new shiny object and forget about all the rest.
Yep.
Actually, what's really important here to understand is that we have an ecosystem of technology, an ecosystem of tools, and GenAI is just one of them. It's very famous. People are using it everywhere, even my kids to do homework. But the point here is it is a technology that is not yet fully mature, that is very unique in the sense that it's not yet fully reliable.
Yep.
And all the other technology that we have in place, you mentioned RPA, are actually very reliable. They are using workflows. They are always going to give the same output. Large corporation like, the capability to predict, the capability to control, the capability to govern. And in the Gen AI space, all the LLMs, all the AI agents that we are talking about on a daily basis nowadays, we are not yet at a point where we have this predictability, this control, this governance. So I would say, depending on the job, depending on the use case, we're going to have, either this new shiny object that is going to be great to do a number of things, but we're still going to have all the other tools. It's going to be an ecosystem of tools that we have to use in order to, automate and inject AI in companies.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies too are going to want to sweat an asset if they've spent money building an RPA process and it's working fine. Why wouldn't you just have generative AI call that kind of as a process and let it run? You've written a great book, The A to Z of generative AI, along with Kieran, who was on the show just a few weeks ago. What are you seeing? I mean, people are talking about AI scaling, but we're not really seeing it scaling the way it should in organizations, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a very typical issue for new technology where people are getting very excited about this new capability, this innovation. They do a lot of proof of concept. They burn a lot of cash playing with the technology. But at some point, you have to move away from the innovation phase and you need to industrialize, which means you need to scale and deploy it across. I give you an example. Copilot, right? So Copilot is one of the many Gen AI capability out there.
Yep.
It's being deployed in companies, and now we start to get numbers, and we see that roughly 30% of the employee are using it, and there's a number of reasons for that, right? So first of all, controlling those technology is, as we were discussing, is still a challenge.
Yeah.
The way those technology are behaving is very difficult to put a process in place and always get the same result, right? So the governance, the approach around those technology needs to evolve. Instead of seeing it as a tool, it's almost like having a bunch of digital humans in your organization that are a little bit as human, unpredictable, and you need to govern that in a slightly different way. So we are not yet there. Also, the other point that is sometimes a concern is the data. People feel that they're gonna just, feed a whole bunch of data into those magic tools and, greatness will happen. Well, that's not the case, right? And then the last point is, in many places, there's a lack of return on investment. So people are starting to realize that, you cannot just put AI everywhere and you're gonna get an ROI. That's not the case as well.
Yeah, so you're kind of talking then about a mixture of governance of data, of the fact that, deterministic versus probabilistic.
Exactly.
There's kind of quite a few things going on in that space.
Yes.
Have you seen anyone who's really doing it well and what they've done?
Yeah, so again, as always, very specific use case in very specific environment can be quite successful. So when you are, spreading the technology across and hoping that everything will work, it doesn't work, right? So you gotta really be good. And what's really important here to understand is, independently of the technology, the selection and the identification of the use case is the critical point for success here.
Yeah, yeah. Look, we're right at time, but I love to ask everybody the same question, which is what would be your one bit of advice for an organization, to really get going with AI adoption? What should they be doing first?
Yeah, so this is something that I try to tell everyone and nobody is listening, because it's human nature. And my advice always the same is, do not fall in love with the technology.
Yeah.
This is really important, right? There's this new cool exciting O1 model that is now capable of doing better than human in many tasks. People, they fall in love with the technology and they forget the basics. And the basics is, understand the business side of what you are trying to do. Make sure that you have identified the expected impact, expected outcome. You have a business case for it. Everything that is non-technology related is more important than the technology itself. And people
Mm.
keep doing the same mistake. They fall in love with a tool, they fall in love with a brand, and then they, as when you are in love, right? Your logic is going away, and then you do a whole bunch of mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. Fantastic advice. Olivia, thank you for joining us on AI in 5.
Thank you.